own innovative leadership, their diligence, their preparation that matters. It's a meritocracy. And that's what we should aspire to in our society. Unfortunately, in Washington, those who are successful are torn down, or they would redistribute from the successful to the unsuccessful. They would take, say the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of Super Bowl trophies, but the poor Detroit Lions have never made it to the Super Bowl. So let's give them one of those trophies, which would be abhorrent. And what we need to do is make sure everyone has that equal opportunity to compete and succeed based upon their own efforts, and that's the promise of America. It's not guaranteed equal results, but equal opportunity.
And you mentioned like the founding fathers, they had it together. And translated into football speak, one might say that the founders believed that the enforcement of illegal procedure and the penalty for this infraction ought to be the same no matter who commits the foul.
Yep. And that is the case. I have two different chapters that have to do with that. One is no one pays to watch officials officiate. Right. And unfortunately in Washington, they take sides. They favor one car manufacturer over another, or one bank over another, and take money, in effect, from one car dealership that may be run by a family for many generations, to take money from that car dealership and give it to a competitor. And what we expect from our government, and this is especially what I write about in my book, is that our government ought to be like a good sports team, soberly focused on specific responsibilities, which for the federal government's national defense, but not manipulating, redistributing, and meddling in people's affairs and spending on somebody else's credit card like a bloated, drunken nanny. The other aspect...
See, now you didn't say sailor. That's good. Now the nannies are doing it. All right.
Well, they're nannies. They're more like nannies than they are sailors. Sailors are useful.
Yeah.
They're helpful. They're good folks.
Well, like you say when you talk about, when you say, George, that when you don't buy a ticket, to see the referee, as you say, and you say officials should not interject themselves into contest ways that tilt the playing field or the outcome. And it's in their eagerness to leave their mark in government, you're saying that many in Washington often impose regulations that run contrary to Thomas Jefferson's famous saying, and that was, the government that governs least governs best. Boy, I wish they could just think about that every once in a while.
Well, they should, and you just look, and Chuck, you're really picking out some of my favorite parts of the book. And you look at, our tax laws are so complicated and convoluted. They're really some of the most complicated in the world. And I think folks ought to have a freedom to choose flat tax, which I put in my book. Hong Kong has done it. If football games always ended up with referees calling a fumble a tuck, folks would think something's wrong. And then the other thing with this health care monstrosity that they passed, people don't care to be dependent on government-controlled, costly health care. Americans, I think, deserve more affordable, personal, portable health savings accounts, which cover all your major medical costs and put us, we the people, in control rather than employers or the government. And unfortunately, though, the government seems to expand, and they do favor one over the other. And again, that's not the way it should be in a free enterprise system where we the people choose who has the best product or the best service, or put us in charge rather than... I just think the quest in our country throughout history, and using those Jeffersonian views, is that we all should have that equal opportunity. We want freedom and opportunity, not dependency or restrictions or limits from a government.
And in the book, you talk about how the government sticks their nose in everything. It's like I think your quote is like, they feel that the American people are not smart enough. For example, I think you use one example, not smart enough, to wear a helmet if you're going to, ride a motorcycle. Can you remember exactly what you say about all that?
Yeah,
that was very interesting.
They got to tell us, In my view, you're better off wearing a helmet. However, if somebody doesn't want to wear a helmet, that you pay higher insurance costs. Same with the seatbelt laws, as if law enforcement doesn't have more important things to do than worry about somebody's lap as they're driving otherwise safely down the road, and a drunk driver who is a danger to himself and to others goes undetected while they're writing somebody up for some seatbelt violation. It's just...
and it's like with nutrition, George. Look what they're doing now. You can't buy that McDonald's supersized burger. We're not going to let you. The government knows what's best for you, including the First Lady. Yes, absolutely. Let us do it. If we die from obesity or a heart attack, okay, all right. And they'll say, no, we have to pay higher insurance rates because you're smoking or you're getting fat.
Well, if somebody smokes, they're going to pay higher insurance rates. That's
and
what
they're going to die earlier.
Companies will do. And
speaking of that,
the
George,
obesity thing, they even Santa Clara County wanted to say that McDonald's could not give out
toys,
gifts to children.
Yeah, they can't put a toy in their little Happy Meals or whatever. Kids meals. Yes.
That's just absurd. And now, who's responsible for that? The parents. If they say, oh gosh, it makes the kids want these kids meals because you have a toy with it. Well, then the parent shouldn't be buying. The parents are the ones primarily responsible.
Absolutely.
Not these officious nannies in Washington.
And you don't need somebody, the government, to tell you your kid can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. You know what it is? The parent says, no. He says, there's a toy in there. No, I said you're not going to get it. Absolutely. Now, we got about a minute before the break, but tell them real quick here, because you say, have you ever wondered why most Americans get their health insurance from their employer when they never think to ask their boss to provide them with auto insurance or homeowners insurance or renter's insurance? How did that come about? What was the main reason?
Well, those were well-meaning people during World War II who put in a wage freeze, and no one could raise salaries for employers. And so to keep good employees and compete with others for good employees, employers, businesses started picking up their health insurance of their employees. And the employees liked it because it was tax-free, but that's where this whole idea of being dependent on employers for health insurance began. Because if you had, as I wrote, who would ever think of an employer paying for renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance?
It was a perk, yeah, so it was a way to go. Now, we're going to take a break. We're going to continue in just a moment with George Allen, former governor of Virginia, U.S. Senator. His brand new book just released yesterday, I think, What Washington Can Learn from the World of Sports. By the way, in Southern California, he's going to be out in San Pedro, and I'm looking for the notes on that, and I hope I'll find them, and I'm sure that George knows where he's going to be, because he always knows where he's going to be and where he's been, and that's why he wrote this excellent book. We'll continue in just a moment.